Chapter 5. The Violence of Virtuality. The smell and the surrounding sounds that create what she experiences. These have an effect on her emotions and embrace her like a warming and comfortable blanket. The element of surprise and the anticipation and suspense that enthrall her heart determine its palpitations. She is plugged in, the connection completely seamless. The waves of sound and decibels fill her body with vibrations. Her perspective is the only one in the room, though she detects the movements of others in her presence. The smallest sound from outside of her experience she considers to be a frustrating interruption of her blissful escape. A sentimental moment which lags at her causes a tingling sensation in her scalp, and with her body slightly tense, she enters a scene with her favorite character, expecting a suspenseful moment, and abruptly, music and color confirm her emotions. Enveloped in a dark moment, the squealing of a wheel and a screaming voice wrench at her nervous system as she exits the scene as quickly as she had entered it. The senses that had utilized her are far more than sight and sound. She feels like exiting while she presses herself into her seat. Her heart throbs upon entering the hall of the big screen, and she experiences a warm glow in her own personal space. Quick, riveting scenes engage and require attention, though little of it, and a violent scene violates and slaps the face. A love scene caresses her heart. Production has moved its representation into the field of the psyche. There is style, status, expression, desire. This desire folds into her subjective experience, and media also engage her, as her consciousness swims in information, data, and pixels, with no escape and no desire for escape. The process between the person and media has been referred to as fusion and takes place in the subjective domain. The subject is something that exists as a psychological and philosophical phenomenon or entity, which is susceptible to being taken over by an object, that is, an object which is external to the subject. That object in this case is media, which has the power to overwhelm the subject. Media's takeover of the subject is not liberating, but rather a violation. Media are not negative or positive in the colloquial sense, as in unhealthy or healthy. Media are positively only in the sense that they are positively invasive and violating. Media have the characteristics of a monopoly in the marketplace, or an intruder waiting to raid the soul of a person. Media are the object referred to above. Media are encroaching on the mental territory of the population of the world. Media engage the person in this creative process. A person can create their identity from media, but not from within. The moment one is exposed to media, the person has already been seduced or violated. One is at first and then always exposed to media. This is an inescapable fact once at a very early age. The person is subjected to invasive media. Lacan, however, explained identity is formed when a child looks in a mirror and realizes they are the intrinsic thing controlling an otherwise chance collection of body parts, limbs, appendages, and the like. As Adrian Johnson explains, The ego, despite consciousness, senses to the contrary. It is not a locus of autonomous agency, the seat of a free, true I determining its own fate. This true I is the ego, which is a phenomenon, a step removed from the subject, and is a mere illusion. Until there was a mirror experience, there is no sense of a unified entity which controls the person. At the breach of that experience, it is in the sense of control which the ego is formed. This is the process that runs parallel to the notion of fusion, where a person's constructed sense of control is formed by media, or indeed is media. The sense of control, the ego, or the person's identity, is a result of process, be it the mirror stage or the fusion process. Persons do not create themselves as ex nihilo, out of nothing, but the material they use is already constructed by society, family, or media. A simple turn to the subject as deconstructed is only the first step in the creative process. Constructivism can be used as a tool in creativity, but it is likely the person who is constructing is basing their ideas on ideations that they were exposed to. Often these ideations come from someone in power, like a celebrity or a politician. The problem lies in the person thinking they are creating and constructing in a vacuum, and their ideas came from within them, when in fact they likely came from an outside source. The work a poet or screenwriter produces, or the end result seen in video games and music videos, is often quite spectacular. The colors, the verbiage, lighting and shading, the textures and connotations all seduce and entrap the experience or the subject of the audience. This process becomes the audience, or the audience becomes the process. It is a question of what will win the attention. The service that is provided to the viewer and the experience afforded the consumer are objects of high order. These are generally considered to be a matchless, timely, and timeless. To put it another way, fusion is a process involving elimination of the primacy of the subject and overpowering of the subject. An audience at a media event is full of literally captive persons. There is no room for any other process and content outside of the interrelationship of subject and media. The subject is vaporized into the process, and it reaches its horizon in the object, media. In the fusion process, individuals are not self-examiners of their own functioning. The individual does not pose a threat to the process, but fusion does more than simply something similar to threatening the person. It enthralls through the weakness of the subject. Weakness is not just evidenced through some effort to overpower. Fusion happens through enticement, persuasion, and violation. Coercion and seduction are terms that accurately describe the effect of media on a singular person. The fusion process is a much more subtle and entangling process which is not easily reduced to a fixed power relationship. Fusion is not simply the result of a hegemonic forces or a hierarchically structured society. This process is in fact a subjugating subjective force both within and outside the individual, and has content that has not the subject's control. Content that is not in the subject's control. Therefore, it is a violation of one's very own dignity.